names because it was actually built by two different people. The first 4 rooms of this house were built in 1856 by John May. In 1880, Dr. Sheldon Stringer bought the property and added 10 more rooms. It's now a 14-room house. We are allowed in 12 of the 14 rooms. So amongst the 3 floors, you'll have plenty of room to spread out and do your investigating. Okay? The first 4 rooms were the parlor, the dining room next to it, and the 2 bedrooms directly above it. None of this existed prior to 1880. And the reason I'm telling you this is right about here was the scene of the first drive-by shooting in Hernando County history. A man was on his way to visit the current occupant of the house. As he climbed the front steps, someone rode by on horseback and shot him dead right here.
Oh.
He was part of a group called the Regulators. They were a vigilante group that was formed here in Brooksville after the Civil War was over. They were not happy that the slaves were freed, that they had to pay a wage, their economy was in the toilet, things were just really awful here. And between 1866 and 1880, there were 40 murders in Brooksville.
Oh.
It wasn't that big a town, folks, so your life wasn't worth a plug nickel, actually. If you made somebody mad, boom, that was it, you know. So things were wild and crazy, and this house had direct ties to a whole lot that was going on, as we'll shortly find out. Let's go this way. We're gonna go right around pictures.
As soon as she said the Regulators, first thing popped in my head was the movie Young Guns.
Yeah.
The Regulators.
Yeah, this is
Oh,
gonna be your
wow.
base of operations. Also, obviously, all of the furniture's antique. So other than the 3 chairs in the entryway, we don't sit on any furniture. When you do vigils, sit on the floor, okay? All right, so 1855, John May comes down here to Florida from Alabama. He brought his wife Moraine and their little baby girl. He bought 160 acres of land right here, where uptown Brooksville sits today. He started a plantation, and his family needed a house to live in. So he built this 4-room house. They moved in. His wife had another little baby girl. And 1 year later, at the age of 25, John May died in this house. He had what they call consumption. We call it tuberculosis today. But back then, they didn't have the medicines they have now. So if you got something that serious, it was almost always fatal. So John dies, leaves his 25-year-old wife here with 2 babies, a bunch of slaves, and a whole plantation to run. Morena stays on and runs the whole show all by herself for the next 9 years until the Civil War was over. Now, when the war was over, this guy right here, take a good look at him, because if you're going to bump into anybody tonight, it's going to be him. His name is Frank Saxon. He was a local boy. He'd gone off to fight for the Confederacy in the Civil War. He was wounded in Perryville, Kentucky, and taken prisoner by the Union Army. He spent the rest of the war in a prisoner of war camp outside of Atlanta. Now, when the war was over, the Union Army didn't know what to do with all these Confederate prisoners, so they just opened the gates of the prison camps and said, go home. He walked back to Brooksville from Atlanta.
Wow.
Anybody in this room think you could do that?
No.
Hell no.
I'll
Not-
try, but I won't.
Not even when I was in my 20s, I wouldn't be able to.
So, anyway, the fact that Frank made it back alive made him a big local hero. Well, his first order of business was to find himself a rich widow. Guess who that was? Morena May. So Frank courts her and marries her and moves right into this house. Well, they had 2 babies. The first was a little boy. He was very sickly when he was born, and he only survived 5 weeks. Morena got pregnant again, and this time she delivered a little baby girl. They named the baby girl Jessie May Saxon. Unfortunately, 3 weeks after Jessie was born, Morena died of childbed fever, which was an infection, but again, no antibiotics in those days. Something that simple could turn ugly, and that's what happened. So Frank the Bachelor is living here with a newborn infant and the 2 little girls from John May, who are now 9 and 10, and they all live together in this little 4-room house. Well, they stayed in this house until just before Jessie May's 3rd birthday, and she dies. She dies very suddenly. Cause of death is unknown. The year was 1872. In 1873, the first of 3 courthouses burned to the ground and took all kinds of records with it. The only evidence we have that this child even existed is this one and only picture taken of her. This was taken right here in the parlor at her funeral. Back then, there weren't funeral parlors. You buried your dead yourself and you bury them on your own property, and that's what this was all about.
Oh, wow.
So there's little Jessie May. That is a copy of the one and only picture because the Saxon family still lives here in Brooksville, and they have the original photograph. They were kind enough to give us a copy of it because that child was born in this house. She died in this house. She's still in this house. How do we know that? Those of us who volunteer here have had our own interactions with this little girl. As I told you outside, I've been with the museum over 21 years. I had my first paranormal experience 3 weeks after I started volunteering here. I was sitting in the entryway one Saturday afternoon. It was closing time, so I sent my 9-year-old daughter upstairs to turn out the lights. Now I could hear Michelle's sneakers going from room to room, but I heard a second set of footsteps, and these were little shoes going pat, pat, pat. Pretty soon my daughter's sneakers are going a little faster, and the little shoes are going a little faster. And my daughter came tearing down that front staircase and looked at me and said, "Mama, don't you ever make me go anywhere in this house by myself again." I said, "I won't, I heard footsteps." She said, "Never mind that, there's a little girl upstairs," and she kept grabbing me by the back of the leg. My daughter never got over that.
Wow.
She had to come here because I volunteered so much, but she sure didn't like it. I'll tell you more about that later. All right, dining room. You're still in the 1856 after school.
Now that's old. Wow.
As you can
Wow.
tell, we're going downhill. It's not so bad now. A couple of years ago, the house was threatening to disintegrate. It was going to just collapse on itself. So we hired a company to come in and look underneath to see their piers needed to be rebuilt. Everything was just sinking in the sand. And they quoted us $40,000. It was way worse than they thought. When they were finally done, and this is as good as it would get, it was $100,000. We had to go to the bank and borrow the money to pay them, but if we didn't, we'd lose our museum altogether. So it was what it was. So we're gonna live with the tilting. It's just the way it is. Now, I've been with the museum all these years, but the first 2 or so, we weren't getting into the ghost tour thing very much. There was no ghost hunters on TV. It was early days. One Saturday afternoon, I'm in this room with 6 people doing the day tour. And the day tour is about artifacts and architecture of the building and history of the area and so on and so on. Well, I'm standing right here talking to 6 people. Over here on the sideboard at the time was an exhibit of antique cups and saucers. So I'm talking away, doing my day tour thing, and all of a sudden, all the dishes were moving. They're just going back and forth. Well, I don't know what this is because I'm not into ghosts yet. And I'm like, okay, I think I'm just going to say what I got to say really fast and get out of here. So I'm talking faster and faster, and the faster I talked, the more the dishes rattled. I don't know to this day if it was me or somebody in this group, but activity was being triggered here. So I'm hurrying and trying to get through everything, and all of a sudden one of the teacups went up in the air about 8 inches, flipped over, and came back down. And I was done with this room. I looked at my guests. Their eyes were bigger than mine, and I said, "Shall we move on?" And they're like, okay. And I got to hand it to them. They went on the rest of the tour. We
Wow.
did the first floor. We did the second floor. We did the attic. Every room we walked into, as soon as we crossed the threshold, something in the room fell on the floor. It happened room after room after room.
Wow.
Yeah, seriously. So at the end of every tour, we come down the front staircase, and at the time, the last room on the tour was right across the hall. That's the old doctor's office. So I'm bringing them down the front staircase, and I announce, "And now we're going to the doctor's office." Well, I turned left, They turned right, went straight out that front door and said, no, we're done. That was it, I never saw anything.
But the cup didn't break or anything? No chips, no
Just-
nothing?
Oh, wow.
It came down.
Wow. Come on down.
Oh man, that's an oldie.
I would recommend periodic body checks, just in case. You never know. All right, so this room, as you can see, is set up and decorated as a kitchen, and that's because of all these wonderful artifacts that were donated that belong in a kitchen. But there never was a kitchen in this house in either John May's time or Dr. Stringer's time. That was the back door of the original May house. You are now in the Stringer house that was added on after 1880. That is the back door of the original Stringer house. The room you see beyond it was a mudroom summer kitchen added on in the 1930s. We did not know that until the reconstruction work on the foundation, the nails and so on used dated to 1930 instead of 1880. This room was for privacy. The Stringer family, 2 generations of doctors, practiced medicine in the same house they lived in. And because of that, the public's coming and going out that front door and into the doctor's office all the time. So there were areas of the house that could be closed off and private for the family's use. And that's what this room was for. The cookhouse was 20 feet from the main house. They always did this in the South, especially if you had the money, because if the cookhouse caught on fire, it wouldn't burn down the whole house. And in the summer, you keep the heat from cooking as far away from the main house as possible, and it helped keep things cooler. So that was their reasoning. Now, Dr. Stringer's granddaughter, she's the one who added the mudroom in the 1930s. She sold this house out of the Stringer family in 1949. It became a single-family rental house from 1950 until it was abandoned in 1974. For 24 years, it was rented to big families. For the obvious reason, if you had 6 or 8 or 10 kids, a 14-room house was perfect.
Yeah.
The other factor was, even back then, this whole house was rented for $100 a month. When was the last time you rented anything for $100?
Not in my time.
No. So we would get big families here. Well, one Saturday, early days of ghost hunting and ghost tours, I'm here working, and there was a tour going on. It wasn't mine, but I overheard a man on the tour, and he's telling somebody else, I lived in this house when I was 9 years old. And I grabbed him right out of that tour, and I said, guess what? I'm going to take you on a personal private tour with me. I'll take you wherever you want to go. I'll tell you whatever you want to know, and you are going to tell me what it was like being 9 years old living here. Well, he was one of 6 children. The day the family moved in, there was a knockout at the front door. So his mom went to answer it, and it was the mailman, and he looked at her, and he goes, you're not moving in here. She said, well, yeah, we are. He said, you're not going to stay. Everybody in Brooksville knows this house is haunted. She said, listen, mister, I got 6 kids, and the price is right. We're going to stay. Well, he said they managed to hang on for 11 months. The night before they gave up and left, they'd been out for the evening. When they came home, they opened the front door, and the lights weren't working in the house. Well, that wasn't such a big deal, especially back then. Electricity came and went. But they could hear this god-awful noise upstairs. There were chains rattling, and the wind was howling, and people are screaming. So the dad said to the mom, stay outside with the kids. He grabbed the family dog and a baseball bat and headed in the front door. The dog wouldn't cross the threshold. He bolted. So the father starts in the front door with nothing but a baseball bat. He goes up the front staircase. He gets to the top of the stairs. All the noise stopped, and every light in this house went on simultaneously. He said that was it. That was the last straw. They couldn't take anymore. The next morning, they quietly packed up. They gave no notice. They simply left. So I'm looking at him, and he's in his 40s. I said, what took you so long to come back here? And he looked at me and said, listen, lady, I wasn't ready to come back here. I had to grow up and be a big boy first. I said, understood, sir. So just as he was leaving, I said, what was the single scariest thing that happened to you personally when you lived here? And he said that one day he was running through the house bouncing a ball on the floor and it made his mother mad. So she yelled at him and said, take the ball upstairs and put it away in your room. So he went up this little back staircase and he's bouncing it down the upstairs hallway. Out of his bedroom steps a woman. She's got her hair up in a big bun and she's wearing a long gown and she's mad. She looks at him and she goes, you quit that racket right now. Put her hand out and said, give me the ball. Well, he was so flabbergasted to see her, he gave her the ball. She took it, turned around and walked back into his bedroom. About 10 seconds later, he hears it bouncing on the floor. So he peeks around the corner. She's gone. Now imagine being 9 years old, having that experience, and that night it's bedtime.
Yeah, no, thank you.
All right, military rooms next.
This is the one I've been waiting for.
And look at the wall.
The military room. Oh my God.
The actual outside.
Talk about old.
The clapboards and the lintels.
Wow.
This was originally a privacy porch. In the South, the big fancy porches out front, they're for show. But again, for privacy for the family, they could come out here from this room and also from the hallway. And the porch actually went around the corner. Now, the house was condemned in 1979 and it was going to be torn down. And that's when our nonprofit group was formed. We're the Hernando Historical Museum Association. We raised the money to purchase the property and began the restoration. 3 years and $300,000 later, it was safe to open as a museum.
Wow.
The artifacts you see in the house were all donated after the fact. Obviously, for all those years, it was used and abused. And we now house 11,000 artifacts in this building, every one of which was donated, which is pretty cool. Yeah. Now, this room, we call it the military room. It all began with the donation of the uniforms you see on the top shelf. They begin with World War I, World War II, and Vietnam. The families of the soldiers brought them to the museum and said, would you honor their memory for us? And based on that, all artifacts military after the fact were that were donated belong in this room. So we're very proud. We have different branches of the service. We have artifacts from World War I and from the Civil War. And this is one of the 3 hotspots in the house for paranormal activity. So especially if we have any military people or from military families, come in here by yourself and sit down and you might be surprised by what you get. Okay? It's the very first piece of evidence by the very first ghost hunting team that came here back in 2002 came from the military exhibit. They had a night vision camera at one end of the room and it had an orb that was going back and forth and it was leaving a trail. It was going so fast. Just they got so excited that group, which were out of Fort Lauderdale, came back 5 more times. They did 6 investigations. And they're the ones who said to us, you guys need money. Why aren't you doing ghost tours? And I said, because I'm the only person on the board of directors that wants to be here at night. I got a couple of volunteers to help me. The rest of the board members are like, I ain't going in there. They won't even come in here by themselves in the daytime, never mind nighttime. So anyway, that was how it all kick-started. And since then, we've hosted over 80 different groups. But that's over 21 years, you know. Wow. They come from as far away as Houston and Chicago because of the internet. It's made us very famous. Yeah. So, welcome. I don't know if you're the 87th or what, but
like a sigh right here.
Oh, look at that currency.
Right here, like a
Really?
sigh,
Wow.
like a really heavy
At the
sigh.
same time that you asked for military
Wow.
or family members, I rose my hand and we all heard it.
Yeah.
cool. Well,
Like
they're
that right
going to be really nice to you for the,
Take it, that
for the
must be
starters,
what they used
okay?
to hold the black
They
powder.
get upset when they get tired of,
The old,
Yeah,
like bullhorns.
all right, because people go, I
Oh,
paid
wow.
money to come here, now damn it, I want to see a ghost.
Oh,
I
Wow.
get tired too.
Oh, that old gas
I'm already
mask.
tired.
Wow. Old bugle horn. Wow.
Welcome to
Whoa.
1800s that a doctor would practice medicine in the same house he lived in. When Dr. Stringer purchased the property and began to add on, this was one of his first additions. He practiced medicine here, and he had a son, Sheldon Jr., and he practiced after his dad. So we had a doctor in residence from 1880 to late 1920s. A lot of activity in this room. Personally, I've only had one unsettling thing happen, and that's with this wheelchair here. You can see it's very dilapidated, can't be moved anymore. It's from World War I. It was dropped off here with a note anonymously that it was sitting on the porch of an old nursing home in Pinellas County. They were going to tear it down, and some concerned citizen decided it didn't, it shouldn't go to the dump, it should be donated. So it just appeared here on our porch one day. My 9-year-old, the one with the little girl upstairs that grabbed her leg, one day she had used the restroom, by the way. The restroom's right here. We do have indoor plumbing now. And so I was going to the bathroom with her, and she looks over at the chair and she said, Mom, there's a half a soldier in that chair. I said, what do you mean a half? She goes, just the bottom half. And his right leg's all ripped open and it's nasty. And I said, okay. She says, he just told me that he wouldn't let him take his leg off, so he's dead now. This is my 9-year-old. No wonder she hated coming here. That's the kind of thing she would see
Kids
when
that
she's
age don't
dead.
bring things up like that.
And by the way, she has 3 kids and she won't let any of them come to the museum. She'll let them go to the depot because of the tree, but that's it. All right, Steve's gonna take you upstairs. I'm totally out of breath now, so he'll show you the 2nd and 3rd floor. And other than that, have a good time tonight. Any questions, come and see me. I'll be right by the front door. We also have a book of pictures taken over a 20-year period from different groups, different visits. And some of them are pretty cool. We captured some full-bodied apparitions here.
So, this is just random off the wall, but if you gotta go to the bathroom, you just can go to the bathroom?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, and there's a light switch
I'm gonna
behind the
turn it
door.
on right
We'll
now.
leave the light on.
okay.
That way you don't have to wrestle with it.
Normally I
Yeah,
turn
you
it
don't
off.
have to go to a porta potty in this house, no.
Also, don't get upset if you can't get back out right away. They just like to play games like that.
I'll just sit there and go, okay, when you're ready.
Yep.
Open the
By the
door
time
for
you're
me.
ready to have a total panic attack, the door will just open.
Oh my God.
Same with the attic door.
Oh,
that
wow.
opens all the time.
I have one question for you. I saw a video with you talking about the angry man and the relationship.
Greg.
With the angry man. Yeah,
No,
Greg. The guy in the attic.
Gary.
But
Oh, Mr. Nasty.
yeah,
Yeah.
Mr. Nasty.
that's who it was. My sorry.
Yeah,
But
I stopped going in the attic years before I couldn't go there anymore.
Was
Was
there anything that specifically set interactions with that off?
Well,
We don't wanna upset.
my first interaction was we were setting the house up for our haunted house fundraiser. We turned this into a total haunted, scary house, you know.
I saw one
And
of the videos.
I was in the closet in the back room getting props out, and somebody slapped me across the face in the closet,
Oh my God.
and no one was there. And
Oh my God.
I started
Imagine
yelling.
that. Imagine that.
I lost my temper and I started yelling at thin air. That was not appropriate. You're not allowed to do that. Don't you ever touch me again. And 2 volunteers are working on the other side of the closet door, and they're like, I come out and they're looking at me. And I said, somebody hit me. She goes, yeah, you got a big handprint on the side of your face.
Oh my God.
So I take my props and I head for the back staircase because we were going to be upstairs. And halfway up the staircase, bam, on the top of my head. And it was like,
Oh,
That might just
splintered.
yeah,
AC
okay,
just
I'm
on.
telling them all about it, all right? That happens a lot, pay no attention. Anyway, so he hit me again, and it was his way of letting me know I don't make the rules, he does. So I made a deal with him, and he's only come after me once since then. And that again happened on the back staircase. That's where he likes to attack. So.
And you ain't care.
Well, yeah, I guess he does it to other people. And when you're gonna do EVPs, obviously. there's a lot of bad words. He swears up a storm.
He's a sailor.
He was a hard drinker. No, I think he was an actor.
Oh,
And that trunk is what he's attached to.
Mm.
Now, that trunk was built in 1880. And I think when he died, he left that trunk to somebody. See, actors were on the road all the time. They were on and off trains and so on and so forth. So the top of it was set up for makeup and costumes, and the bottom was for his personal clothing. And so that was home. That trunk meant a lot to him in his lifetime. It's not where he left it, so he's pissed. He's been mad since he got here, and it was just brought here. No acquisition paperwork, nothing. So he's just plain mad. He doesn't like women, particularly alpha women, unfortunately. I think that's right.
Watch yourself, Jenny.
Anyway, that's how it all
Yeah.
started. Now, I made a deal with him. I said, I'll stay out of the attic and you leave me alone. And like I said, only once in the last umpteen years has he done it again, so.
I caught him on a good day when I was here, but
Oh yeah, she gave him a bottle of liquor and he actually said thank you. Like he thanked her.
Well, you're lucky he said thank you instead
well,
of
and then I
F you.
started asking him about his life, and then he was like, he said, answered a couple questions. He said, no more,
Yeah,
and that was the end
and
of
when
it.
he's done with you, he's really done with you.
Now
He'll
the
tell you to F off, you know, that's it, you're done. Anyway, so that's the angry guy.
And he's just in the attic, nowhere else.
No, he goes
He can go
wherever.
he
wherever.
goes wherever.
Okay.
If he wants to follow you to the bathroom, he's gonna follow you to the bathroom.
Both times he hit me, I was on the back stairs, so
Oh,
be
wow.
aware.
All right.
I'll go over
Alright.
more about the attic once we get up there, so you can go ahead and follow me.
Now I'm nervous to go.
Yes,
Oh,
thank you
thank
very
you
much.
for coming.
Yeah.
I got 1,000,000 of them. Talk to you later.
This is where I got pushed, remember?
Yeah.
You go. I'm gonna be right behind you. This
Use
is
the handrails, everybody.
this is where I got pushed when we were here last.
Yeah, museum rules, hold the handrail.
Oh, wow. Cute little bird cage.
There's a towel right here. Be careful, it's done. Is that everyone?
Yes.
So right now, we're standing in the master bedroom. We're actually directly above Dr. Stringer's office. This is the room where Mr. and Mrs. Stringer spent many years sleeping in this room. So you can imagine a lot of emotions throughout the years in this room. Now, Dr. Stringer spent most of his time in his office working with patients. So this actually became Mrs. Stringer's sanctuary. She spent a lot of time up here collecting her thoughts, reading the Bible. Now, she was a very stern Christian woman, so she lived her life by the Bible, and she expected everyone else to do the same. So a lot of people get a feeling of judgment in here, especially if she doesn't feel you're dressed appropriately to the time period. Now, after many years pass, Dr. Stringer passes away, and Mrs. Stringer passes away not too far behind him. Now, in 1919, a soldier by the name of James, a family friend of the Stringers, came to live here. Now, after the war, he was excited. He had a fiance. He was excited to start his family, get his life started, but he found out his fiance left him for another man. So he was devastated. I mean, anybody would be devastated. Your whole life plans are put on hold. So time goes by, he becomes depressed, and eventually he does take his own life, and he hangs himself upstairs. Now, James is known as a ladies' man. He's a good guy, good spirit, but he is a ladies' man. So he's been known to stroke hair, touch butts. So ladies, if you are touched, first make sure it's not somebody who's actually alive in the room. That's what we normally say. If not, it probably is James, and he tends to follow the ladies. He's also a protector too, so he's a really generally good guy. As far as experiences made, I'm very skeptical. I'm very careful what I decide what I call paranormal, but the experience I had in here is hissing. Where that comes from, what that meant, I have no idea. Happened to me twice in here. I get hissed at. So we're gonna go directly across to the communications room next. Directly across the hall.
Jenny, right here. I thought there was like an air vent. The back of my neck is ice cold.
Yeah, there's a couple air vents on the floor. Actually, yeah, I think it's somewhere.
It felt like a cold right on the back of my neck.
So this is the communications room. Obviously, all the different types of communication devices throughout the years, so that's why we labeled this room the communications room, telephone booth. This was for, I believe, communications for operator. Now, this was actually the original master bedroom. And when John May died of tuberculosis, chances are he most likely died in this room. Now, after John May died, Marina May married Frank Saxon. Now, Frank Saxon's spirit has been seen on this porch right here, and we have a picture of it, that of a spirit that looks like Frank Saxon. Now, Frank Saxon didn't die in this house. He ended up over at the Saxon Manor. I don't know if you heard of it. It's right down the street. That was his original resting house, and he was buried in the Brooksville Cemetery. But the reason why we think we see his spirit here is his daughter died in this house at the age of 3. So, chances are he's here either looking for his daughter, wondering what he could have done to save his daughter. We think maybe his daughter maybe fell off the balcony. We don't know because all the records were lost. But that's the reason why we think we see Frank Saxon here and why his spirit is still here, looking for his daughter. His daughter is buried actually on the property too, along with Marina May and the family, and they're all buried on the property. We don't know exactly where they're buried, but chances are it's closer towards the house. So as you're driving out of here, you may be driving over a grave. Quite a few graves.
Have they ever looked into doing scans?
Yes, we have done scans, but I'm not sure what came with that, but I know there are some divots, to where we think that might be a spot where they're buried.
Oh,
Now, is
alright.
Mr. May
I'll be
buried
alright.
here as well?
John May? Yes.
Okay.
Yes, John May is buried in Marina May. No, Marina May wasn't buried here. John May and Jesse May were buried here, yes.
Okay.
So we'll go ahead and right across to the children's room next. Oh, I cut it, sorry. So this is the children's room. A lot of us call it Jessie May's room. Now, when Marina May gave birth to Jessie May, chances are she probably most likely gave birth in this room. And when she died 3 weeks later, chances are she probably died in this room as well too. Now, the children energy is very strong in this room, and obviously not just because of all the toys, but this was, of Jessie May, the spirit here, and also we have some of our oldest and most delicate artifacts in this house are these dolls right here in this crib. Now, the crib is over 100 years old. The doll all the way to the left predates the Civil War. It's one of our most oldest delicate items, and it's our absolutely do not touch item in this house. Its eyes are made out of glass, the head is made out of paper mache, and it's stuffed with sawdust. So if you were to touch it, you could potentially damage it. The doll all the way to the right dates the 1920s, and we're not sure about too much information about the one in the middle. Now, the Civil War doll, there is a spirit attached to that doll. We think it's a girl between the ages of 5 and 7. And the reason I know that, because I've had a personal experience. When I was here, I heard a little girl say in a very soft voice, "My baby." And I heard it with my own ears. So she doesn't like anybody touching it. She doesn't even like you calling it a doll. That's her baby. Now, back in the 1800s, they didn't have toys like we did growing up. We had a bunch of toys growing up. They had one toy, one treasured item that they were held close to them, and they were attached to it. So that's why we think spirits become attached to their dolls, their babies. That's her baby. It was their prized possession at the time. I had the pleasure of actually moving this crib from downstairs to upstairs, and you can just feel the air. It's so hard to explain, but as soon as me and Autumn lifted that, all the lights dimmed and flickered. As soon as we picked it up and I had to carry it up the stairs, I've never felt that feeling and it's like the air was, it's so hard to explain. It's like everything went silent and everything was, I couldn't hear. It was just so hard to explain as we were moving that up here. Thank God we made it up here safely. It's back in its original spot. We apologized to her and let her be. You do get some good EVPs in here, so if you have an EVP recorder, I suggest coming up here, asking questions, and you'll hear a little girl's voice. So, now, even though you can't touch anything in this room, we do have a bin under there and some toys up there you can use as trigger objects to work to try and communicate with the children. We just ask that when you're done with the toys, if you neatly put them back when you're done.
But we can put like the K2 meter in the crib.
No,
No.
nothing. We ask that you don't put anything in the crib. If you want to have an EVP recorder or something close by it, that's fine. It's just a rule.
So put it on a chair or.
Right, the chair or the floor or anything around it. We just ask you, please don't touch the crib or anything in the crib. So that about covers it for this room. We're gonna go upstairs to the 3rd floor landing next.
Freaking eyes on that doll in the middle. That's creepy. Shit.
So this is the 3rd floor landing. Now back downstairs when I was talking about James when he committed suicide, we think chances are he probably wrapped a rope around one of those beams up there, and it would be the only place for a person to hang himself. So we think that chances are he hung himself right up there. A lot of people will get a feeling of like they can't breathe up here, severe anxiety. I've seen people just have to just leave because they
See, I
couldn't
already
handle
feel that. I
the
felt that one,
emotions.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time breathing right now.
Yeah, like I said, energy never dies. It continues. So that energy and those emotions, I believe they stay here. The feeling of him as he's dying right here. That feeling, I believe, still, and that's why people feel that. Like they can't breathe, or the anxiety, or some people feel depressed, or sad, and people have broke out in tears and just had to leave. So this is a high energy spot for that. Another thing we'd like to bring up, we have this right here. Now we went through with a metal detector up front, and these are some of the items that we found up front. We have shell casings from a shotgun. Whether was it target shooting, was there questionable, was there a murder? We don't know.
These are from off the property, y'all think?
Yeah, right out front, right on the property. There is there's a piece of a bra strap. How that got out there? They might have hung their clothes out there. Who knows? There's a cannonball toys, like metal cannonballs, like a part of a toy. A piece of a harmonica, a key that goes to who knows what it goes to, and a couple other items I'm not sure. A lot of shell casings look like handgun shell casings and a couple shotgun shell casings, which is pretty cool to find out front. Now we're gonna go ahead into everybody's favorite place. Yeah.
I just the air is a lot thicker up here.
Yeah. And when you go into the attic,
Alright,
go
sorry.
to that
Hi,
side,
Gary.
and then look back over that way. There's a little cutout in the wall. That's where the eyes were.
Oh.
Careful, there's a little ledge right there.
Be careful of the floor, and the doorway. You don't trip over that.
Where is it? It's right here.
Oh yeah, if you guys get hot, there's a air conditioner right there.
Yeah, there's a vent. That's what.
Yeah.
Feels good.
This is where I hung out last time.
I noticed the air
Yeah.
So as
thick over there.
It's heavy.
Yeah, it's like
Almost
real
stomach.
heavy.
It is
In your
heavy in there.
stomach in here, yeah.
so
I
this is the
can
attic.
feel the tightening
Now-
in my chest.
We think this might have been probably a servant's quarters for where a servant would live. And the reason we say that is you can see a little vanity table right there. So chances are there was probably a bed. This bed isn't original, but chances are there was probably a bed right here. There's a vanity set, and also right out here you can see there's a porch. So this was a living quarters of some sort. Who lived up here? We don't know. I think it might have been. I think there's a spirit here called Molly. I think Molly was maybe a servant here, you know, that worked here, that maybe lived up here, and amongst other people. One of our most famous items in this house is this late 1890s actor's trunk, as Bonnie was saying. The spirit attached to this, we call him Gary. His name's Gary. Now, not just everyone owned an item like this. You had to be a pretty important person to own a trunk like this. So the person who owned a trunk like this was either in theater, a traveling businessman, maybe in a circus. You know, who knows what he was, but he was a very important person. So that's why he's attached to this. This was he lived out of this suitcase anywhere he went for many years. Now, I can only tell you my version of Gary and experiences I've had with Gary. I don't think Gary's an evil spirit. I don't think he's evil. He likes messing with people for sure, especially women. I've never had a negative. I personally never had a negative experience with Gary. I've had experiences before I started coming here and working here. I came here on a tour like you guys did. I didn't believe in ghosts. I thought it was bull. You know, I came here for my wife. She wanted to come. But it was fun. It was a cool house, you know, and I had my very own first paranormal experience up here. I've gotten grabbed. My shirt was grabbed, and I had a flashlight sitting on that table over there. And I was asking, turn the flashlight on for like 5 minutes. And actually, one of the other volunteers got this on video. I was sitting on that couch, and the flashlight turned on and got thrown at me in midair, which was my first paranormal experience. So I became a believer after that. So then I started coming on more tours, and I had more experiences. And my wife had many experiences sitting on that couch right there. A lot of people have experience on that couch of their leg being touched, feeling whispering, or they're blowing behind their head, in their ear, their hair being touched on that couch. So that couch is, especially for women, people have a lot of experience.
You can sit on the couch or you don't.
Yes, you can sit on pretty much anything up here, except for you can't sit on this chair or the bed. The bed is very finicky. The chair's broken, and a couple of these chairs might be broken. But any other chairs you can, yes, you can sit up here. You're good to go up here.
Lay on your own challenge. Yeah.
And as far as and the other, now when I started working here, I don't have too many experiences, and like I said, I'm very careful to label what I think is paranormal. I'm very skeptical, but I was up here late, closing up, turning off, making sure everything was putting back in its place, and I heard rustling back there. So, and I looked back there, there's nothing back there. Then all of a sudden I heard footsteps stomping, running towards me very fast. I got the hell out of here. That was the one and only time I was really, really, really scared. That scared me pretty bad. I've seen shadow figures up here. I've heard my name has been called up here. My wife's name has been called up here. If you use a spirit box, a lot of times you'll get F off, go F yourself, dysentery. He likes the shock factor. So if you scare easy, chances are Gary's going to target you and scare you. Maybe that's why I don't have too many experiences anymore, because he's just used to me. You know, he doesn't. I don't scare very easy, except for that one time he did scare me. He got me.
I need that.
He got me.
I need that.
You get a lot of EVPs, and not just from Gary, but a couple weeks ago, I do the Friday night tours, is what I normally do too. We heard a little girl up here giggling back over there. So I think that who
Jessie May?
Could have been Jessie May, maybe Molly. I know there's a spirit Molly here. Who it was, I'm not sure, but we did hear a little girl. And another person who I don't like, if you see this picture up here,
I was just looking at that picture. It looked like the face was changing.
and that's
Straight up. I was looking at it. It
people
looked like
say
the face
that.
was changing.
Her eyes also move with
Ooh.
you. You're over there and you go side to side, her eyes go with you.
Yeah, I personally don't like this picture. I mean, look at the scowl on her face, but I try to respect her.
Yeah,
She
that's-
was donated. It's not time period or
looks
anything.
pissed.
Bonnie doesn't
That's
really
sketch.
like it here. That's why it's up in the attic. But she's supposed to be a witch, and we actually had a little we had an
Eyes
event a
look
couple weeks ago,
weird.
and we moved her down on the staircase with her crystal ball, and the one and only time that pictures were flying off the wall, everything was just going chaotic. I was hearing, I was downstairs working, so I was hearing everybody talking about this. So I'm thinking people were just,
Is
like
there
I
a
said,
crystal ball up here with us?
I don't know. There is a crystal ball. I don't know where they keep that, but yes, she does have a crystal ball, but it was set up down there. But people were telling these stories, and like I said, I'm skeptical. So I came upstairs, and you can just feel. I had a sudden panic attack, and I didn't know. You could just feel that she was just not happy. So I think her and Gary butt heads. She's she's a very stern woman too. So I feel like they interact. As far as experiences, people do have experiences with her. You'll hear her, an older lady come through on EVPs, spirit boxes. So I think that pretty much covers it for up here. Now when you're up here, there are some loose floorboards in the back. So if you are walking back there, be careful you don't trip.
Is
on
the
loose
mannequin
floorboards.
still up here?
It's
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah, the mannequin. That's for the
That-
for the Halloween.
Scared me the
Oh.
last time
I
we
caught
were
that
here.
out of the
I
corner of my
forgot
eye.
to turn
I'm
my
looking like,
flashlight on, and
what
all
the
of a
hell is
sudden I
that?
thought I thought somebody was there.
Yeah, he scares. On my first tour when I came here, he
Huh.
scared the crap out of me.
That was
Yeah.
the only time I was like,
If
see,
I
I
remember
need a
right,
break for 5
Right
minutes.
here is where that doll was
And
when
then
the
I found
face
out something.
fell
So
off.
for the rest of the time,
in the
is
video I
yours.
was
If you have
watching.
any questions, feel free to ask me or Bonnie. We'll be downstairs. We'll try and be as quiet as possible for your investigations and have a good time and be careful.
I
Thank
forgot
you
to
so
ask
much.
Bonnie.
My name's Steve.
Steve.